Hello everyone, welcome to this second last topic of this module, that is filing of nil GSTR-3B return. So in this topic we are going to cover how to file nil GSTR-3B return and to whom filing of nil GSTR-3B is applicable. So before we proceed with today's topic, let us see what we did in our previous session. So in our previous session we learned about generating GST challans and making online payments. We studied what is a GST challan and why it is used, when a challan is required to be generated and how the payments are made, that is using either net banking or NEFT or RTGS option or through over the counter challan. We also had a live example to see the challan generation process. So let us start with today's topic, that is filing of nil GSTR-3B return. So what is nil GSTR-3B return? It is a monthly return with no outward taxable supplies, no inward supplies under RCM, or no tax liability or input tax credit claims. It is mandatory to be filed even with zero business activity. So if there are no outward taxable supplies or there are no sales or services during the reporting period, then a nil GSTR-3B return can be filed, choosing the option of filing nil GSTR-3B return at the top of the GSTR-3B return. Then if no inward supplies under RCM, so under RCM if the recipient is liable to pay the GST on such inward supplies, then in that case nil GSTR-3B return is not applicable. Hence, in case where inward supplies liable to reverse charge is required to be reported in GSTR-3B, then it will not fall under the nil filing of GSTR-3B scenario. Also, no tax liability or no ITC claim. If the taxpayer doesn't have any tax liability for the reporting period, that is current period taxes or previous periods interest liability or late fee liability, or if he doesn't have any input tax credit claims, then he can file a nil GSTR-3B return. A point to be noted here is if the supplier of goods or services has issued any debit note or credit note during the reporting period, then nil filing of GSTR-3B return is not possible, as debit note will ultimately increase the tax liability although it pertains to prior period, but since it is reported in the current period, so the current period's GSTR-3B return will capture the details of such debit notes or credit notes. Hence, issuing debit note or credit note during the reporting period will makes the taxpayer ineligible to file a nil GSTR-3B return. So it is mandatory to file GSTR-3B return in case where there are zero business activities. So moving ahead, what are the consequences of not filing GSTR-3B return? Late fee of rupees 20, that is 10 under the CGST head and rupees 10 under the SGST head will be charged in case of filing of GSTR-3B return belatedly. But this amount has an upper limit, that is the maximum limit that can be charged as late fee is rupees 500 per return. Then e-way bill generation blocked. If GSTR-3B return is not filed for the reporting period, the department may block the generation of e-way bill that will ultimately lead to difficulties in the movement of goods. Then risk of GST registration getting cancelled. So if the taxpayer fails to file GSTR-3B return consecutive for 3 months, then the department may resort to cancellation of GST registration. Who can file nil GSTR-3B return? Regular taxpayer with no sales or purchase transactions, no input tax credit claims and no liabilities can file nil GSTR-3B return. So, if the taxpayer doesn't have any sale or purchase transactions during the reporting period, then nil GSTR-3B can be filed, but as we just discussed, if there are some debit notes or credit notes affecting the current period's tax liabilities, then nil return cannot be filed. So any increase in tax liabilities due to issuance of debit note or any decrease in current period's tax liability due to issuance of credit notes, in such a case nil 3B cannot be filed. Also, if there are no input tax credit but the taxpayer wants to make certain reversals of prior period during the current reporting period, then also nil filing of GSTR-3B is not possible. He has to report such reversals in the GSTR-3B return and pay the corresponding taxes against such reversals either through input tax credit or through cash. Then no liabilities. Even the case can be that for the current period there are no liabilities, but for the prior period there are some late fee or interest of prior period which needs to be discharged so as to proceed to file GSTR-3B return. In such a case also filing of nil GSTR-3B return is not possible. So it must be ensured that no transactions exist to file the nil GSTR-3B return. So how nil GSTR-3B return is filed? First, we have to log into our GST account by navigating to www.gst.gov.in. After logging in, we have to navigate to services. Then under services, we have to go to returns tab. Then under returns, we again have to go to the return dashboard. We have to choose the financial year and period of filing. Then we have to choose the GSTR-3B return. After choosing nil GSTR-3B return, we have to click on prepare online option. Then on preparing the GSTR-3B return, we will find a option of nil filing of GSTR-3B return at the top of the GSTR-3B. We have to tick mark the checkbox and proceed to next. Then the final submission, click preview draft 3B. So before the final submission, the drafted GSTR-3B return must be thoroughly verified so that no transaction exists in there. Then we have to click on proceed to file, and finally we have to submit the GSTR-3B with the DSC or EBC as per the convenience. And also after selecting the EBC option, we need to enter the OTP and finally submit the GSTR-3B return. Upon the final submission, we will receive a ARN confirming the submission. Then to verify if our return has been filed or not, we have to navigate to the returns tab, and under returns tab we have to go to view file returns. Under view file returns, we again have to select the period and check the filing status. It must be coming as filed. From there we can download the acknowledgement of the file return. So what are the frequently asked questions related to filing of nil GSTR-3B return? Can I file nil GSTR-3B return if I have input tax credit claim? So the answer is no. If during the reporting period we have made certain purchases, or even if we have not made any purchases during the reporting period, but some of our vendors have reported our sales of prior period during the current reporting period, then also we can't file nil GSTR-3B return, or else we will lose the input tax credit against such invoices. Then can nil GSTR-3B be revised? No. There are no option to revise GSTR-3B returns. So if you have filed your GSTR-3B return as nil for the reporting period, you cannot amend it later with transactions. Do I need to file nil return monthly? Yes, if you have opted for monthly filing of GST return, then you must file your nil GSTR-3B return every month. Or if you have opted for quarterly return monthly payment scheme, then also you need to file your GSTR-3B return on a quarterly basis, but nil filing is mandatory. Then what are the common mistakes to avoid? Filing nil despite having transactions, it must be ensured before filing that you doesn't have any sale or purchase transactions before filing the nil return. Then forgetting to submit with DSC or EBC, mere submission of GSTR-3B return doesn't amount to filing of GSTR-3B return. So GSTR-3B return must be filed through the EBC or DSC as applicable, and it should not be left after submitting the return. Then missing deadline and paying late fee. Again, taxpayers should adhere to the deadlines and file the GSTR-3B return well within due date to avoid interest penalties and notices from the GST department. Summary and best practices. File nil GSTR-3B on time. So it is better to file the nil returns well within time to avoid any late fee, interest or penalty. Then keep copy of acknowledgement. The downloaded GSTR-3B must be downloaded for records and kept it in that month's folder. Then use SMS facility if eligible. So nil GSTR-3B return can also be filed through SMS. So for filing of nil GSTR-3B through an SMS, the taxpayer is required to send an SMS to 14409 where he should write nil, then space, then 3B, then again space, then 15-digit GSTIN number, then again space and tax period, that is month and year. For example, if the month is May and the year is 2025, then he should write 052025 and send it to 14409. Nil return will be filed after confirming through an OTP. So let us take few scenarios to understand if filing of GSTR-3B nil return is possible under such scenarios or not. So here are few scenarios. Let us examine each of these. In the first scenario, we have sales data, yes. No purchases. Previous period return filed on time, yes. Debit notes, credit notes during the reported period, no. And inward supplies attracting RCM, no. So will it be possible to file a nil GSTR-3B return? The answer is no, as we have outward supplies attracting liabilities. Or even if there are no tax payable during the reporting period against the sales, that is if they are the exempt turnover also, then also we cannot file nil GSTR-3B return. In the second scenario, we have sale, no. Purchases, yes. Previous period return filed on time, yes. Debit note, credit notes, no. And inward supplies attracting RCM, no. In this case, since we have made purchases during the reporting period, we cannot file nil GSTR-3B return. But if we proceed to file nil GSTR-3B return, then we will lose the input tax credit. But if we have made purchases that are from unregistered parties not appearing in our GSTR-2B return, then we can proceed to file nil GSTR-3B return. In the third scenario, we have sales, no. Purchases, no. Previous period return filed on time, no. Debit note, credit notes, no. And inward supplies attracting reverse charge mechanism, again, no. So will it be possible to file nil GSTR-3B return? The answer is no. The reason for this is our previous period return was not filed on time, due to which the interest and the late fee of the previous period will be charged in our current return. So we have to pay the previous period's interest amount along with late fees in the current period and offset the liabilities. Then only we can proceed to file the GSTR-3B return. So in such case, filing of nil GSTR-3B return is not possible. In the fourth scenario, we have sales, no. Purchases, no. Previous period return filed on time, yes. Debit notes or credit notes, yes. Inward supplies attracting reverse charge mechanism, no. So in this case also, we won't be able to file a nil GSTR-3B return. The reason being, we have raised debit notes or credit notes, ultimately affecting our tax liabilities. So either tax liabilities are positive or negative, we cannot file nil GSTR-3B return. In the fifth scenario, we have sales, no. Purchases, no. Previous period return filed on time, yes. Debit notes, credit notes, no. Inward supplies attracting RCM, yes. So again, in this case also, we are not allowed to file nil GSTR-3B return as we have liabilities against inward supplies attracting reverse charge mechanism. We have to pay the GST on reverse charge, and correspondingly we have to, or we can claim the input tax credit against such GST paid. So that's it for today's session. Thank you.